friends here and everywhere, ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but stretching out rather to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. Of that there can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Your silence will not protect you. Audre Lorde. And I amend that to say, our silence will not protect us and in fact will harm us. In 1963, Martin Luther King penned his powerful letter from Birmingham jail. In it, he wrote, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all of us indirectly." I'm here to tell you about the importance of rhythm, relationships, and conversations about race. We all have rhythm that's important to us. In 2003, I suffered a stroke. I had been a piano teacher for many decades, and one day I was playing soccer and decided to have a header. I didn't know at the time that that was not very smart. I ended up having a stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke on the right side of my brain. The hemorrhagic strokes are the most dangerous and the deadliest of the strokes. Over the course of the next 3 years, I ended up having two hemorrhagic strokes and was told that I would have to have surgery in order to survive, brain surgery. Not something that you want to hear about. So I had my surgery and was told that there was a likelihood, that there was a possibility I would lose function in my hands, that I would have difficulty walking and difficulty talking. Fortunately, that didn't occur. But while recovering from my stroke, I then I discovered the drum. I discovered a djembe drum, which is a West African hand drum. And with this drum, I began to take classes. I had never played before. I didn't know what it was like. I was a classical musician. We deal with all sorts of rhythms in different ways. I began to take these classes, and in these classes I found that it was wonderful. The most healing aspect of drumming, I found, was that you would have one rhythm going steadily and moving and doing this beautiful thing, and then another rhythm doing its different but beautiful thing, and these rhythms would dance with each other like that. And above that, I would hear another rhythm. So out of the relationship between this and that, it created something else altogether. So there's something powerful about the way things can interact. You can have something different, and then they interact to become something greater than that. And I found that it was important for me to take that out to do that with groups of people. As someone who had been a piano teacher for all of those years, I found that it was rather limiting for me, for my students, to play on the stage by themselves and to not interact with the audiences. And sometimes I would have my piano students do things where we interacted and danced and did other things with our audiences, but most of the time not. Drumming changed all of that. It was possible to have people like all of you here, like those of you who may be watching, who play no instrument or who even think perhaps that you are not a musician. I'm here to tell you that because of that sound, all of us are musicians. And because of that, all of us are musicians. And because you're walking on this earth, you are a musician. Because you can talk, you are a singer. And because you can move any part of your body, you are a dancer. So when I get groups together, I have them connect in rhythm and talk to each other and look at each other and mimic each other. So it's wonderful when we're drumming all together with people who believe that they have no rhythm. And I get them to look around and to copy each other, to mimic and mime each other, and to smile and wave at each other, if they feel like it, of course, and if they're up to doing that. and then connect together. And then the most amazing thing is when I call out 1, 2, ready, and stop. And suddenly, all of these different rhythms stop at the same time, and they look at each other with joy and think, what just happened? They're amazed that they all stop together. And I tell you, it's so interesting that I will do it, and I will do it over and over because they want me to do it. And for everyone from little kids to high school and college kids to my corporate groups, and I used to go down to DC regularly to drum with the military, with the Navy, NavAir, and they also would have the same reaction of joy at stopping altogether. And what that's about is something called entrainment. And entrainment is what happens when we're going along and we have to connect with each other. So for instance, all of us entrain all of the time when you drive down the road. That saves you from hitting other cars because you're in rhythm, you're in sync together. Entrainment is what happens when you're walking along a busy sidewalk and you don't bump into people, but you're walking and somehow you're weaving and stepping off sidewalks and going faster and slower. You're connecting in rhythm. Entrainment is what makes it possible for us to have our children and love them and be in relationships and love our partners, and we're in training with them. And entrainment is what happens when you pick up your child and you tap him or her on the back gently and you rock them like that and you're holding them. You're in training with your child and they are learning to trust you. So entrainment is also about trust. So you have the rhythm, the connection there, you have the relationship, and what I encourage people to do is use that relationship to reach beyond the communities that you're currently in and to reach out to people who are very different from you. In 2016, I traveled to China, and I was in China for a week, drumming with families there. And surprisingly, I spoke no Chinese. Surprises me that I spoke no Chinese, that I would travel to a country and I didn't speak the language, and I get there, but they love the drumming. I bring my African drums and we're dancing and drumming all these wonderful songs and rhythms. And the same thing that happens when I call out 1, 2, ready, and stop, they are equally filled with joy. And we do this, and after many days of doing this, they all decide that they really love me. And it's wonderful. I have dinner with them and we have conversations through our interpreter. And I was told by several fathers that they were stunned that they had an African American that they connected with, someone from around the world, and they had never thought that they could have someone like me with whom they could talk. And so we would have these interesting and wonderful conversations about the 2016 election that was coming up at that time. We'd talk about Black Americans, their views of Black Americans. We talked about my views of China, what it was like to be a Black man walking around the streets of China. That same experience of entrainment has helped me when I go to homogenous communities all throughout America, drumming, and help people talk about rhythm and race, and help them connect with each other, and they connect with me. And when we're dealing with relationships, one of the things that I encourage people to consider is that in reaching beyond who you are and reaching to another world that's different than yours, one important thing to consider talking about is race. That is the major problem, I believe, of this country. We have never, as that video just showed us, we have not dealt with the problems of race in this country. And interestingly, the problems of race affect this whole country and in fact affect the world. It's well beyond affecting just Black and brown communities. It affects all of us. So much as Audre Lorde said, our silences will not protect us. We have to speak up and reach out. It is difficult for people to talk about race. Sometimes people will feel, I am not racist, or we shouldn't talk about race because talking about race makes it worse. That is unfortunately a very, very big lie. It doesn't make it worse. What happens is that it goes underground and becomes something else. Racism is part of the institutions of this country. It affects our educational system, our health care, housing, criminal justice system, entertainment, sports. It's everywhere. So racism is a system that sits over all of these other systems and organizes how they work. The fact that we're here in this town, in this place, is built. This place is built on racism. This country is built on racism. Everywhere you walk in this country, racism has affected it in some fashion. It's difficult to talk about racism. What I encourage people to see is that we're all connected to each other, that we all have this heartbeat. And ask everyone here in this space, I'm going to ask you to look around at folks here. So I'm going to ask all of you to turn around. I don't see anybody turning around. Look at each other. And I'm going to ask all of you to put your hand on your heart and tap the words and say the word heartbeat. Say that, heartbeat. Say that. There you go. Give me more. Give me more. Good. Now with the other hand, relationship. Heartbeat, relationship. Heartbeat, say that. Heartbeat, relationship. Heartbeat, heartbeat. There you go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Everyone stop. Thank you all so much.